So fear, I suppose many people could interpret it different ways, and even though there is a general consensus, I remember when I was 17, which got me into these, let's just say, more interest, introspective workshops, dreams, diary, daily dreams, daily diary, breath work, learning astrology. So why did I go? I had questions. I was fearful of the dark. I had no information beyond that, and death and. So here I am quickly elaborating on the fear of death. Here I am, the lamps behind me, always keeping my organs warm when I need to. So I had no, let's just say, data at the age of 16 about conscious data about experience of fear and death. So in retrospect, due to a lot of past traumas imprinting, I was very caught up in, like, say, many nonsenses, in a state of shock, in a state of trauma, fight or flight, different words for survival mode. Let's just say victim of society, a state in societies that is advocated to say believed as normal. Excuse me, that's my little bammer in the background. However, I remember seeing this New Orleans approach to death, the funerals. Oh my gosh, I was blown away. Imagine 16, just don't have anything else in your data. Some people are fortunate, they are able to read, well read, past information from their grandparents, parents. I had zilch. So again, even if I did, it didn't register because in fight or flight mode, shock, trauma. So let's just say in survival mode, some people are fortunate that they can have lots of, let's just say, information at that age. So this New Orleans approach blew me away. I put the clip. So let's just say that gave me more questions about death and dark. Why did I fear dark? However, earlier or later in this podcast or this clip, I will go into like the realms I just automatically saw. Let's just say, well, for whatever reason, I could still see that. So on a level, there was that, and I forgot to say, sitting in the street, playing in the gutter, as you do, as I did 60 or 58 years ago, looking up in the clouds. Things would come out of the clouds, images. So them realms, it felt like they were on me. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Dark. And then so a little voice in me like, right, this has come your way, jump in. So I was in some respects challenging the spiritual, let's just say, alternative reality, which I didn't know hardly anything of. So from that experience, I'm delving into my inner world, inner me, what I believe. I look back in retrospect, all my, let's just say, inner repressed aspects of myself. There's so many layers and layers and layers. I probably won't even get to sort of say them all. Repressed aspects of myself. So myself, what am I referring to? An inner connection of self, all that we all have. So in other words, the layers and layers and layers and of imprinting, and the trauma creates a shock to the electric system. We are electric beings, so we shut down, and then imprinting becomes manifested. Let's just say a certain imprinting which isn't from law of nature or natural. So defragging all that madness, so yeah, in terms of the introspective workshops, groups that I did, it was really going into the inner world to clear a lot of that. I use the word defragging. via computers that we've been hacked and just messed around with. So in terms of going deep, so it's just all this nonsense, layers and layers of, let's just say, the space guardians, parents generally don't know how to hold the space. So we get introduced to more the lower realms that are around, especially where I was or in my situation. And then so it goes on and on. So let's just say, clearing a lot of that in these groups. And what a beautiful opportunity. And then I do use the word, some people are more, let's just say, fortunate than others. You know, it's the same. Whatever words I choose to want to use at a given moment, you know, there's good, bad, whatever, they're all words. It's all, there's a non-duality to the two. Energy is energy. We've just made these words, and if I'm attaching, then fool me if we're going to be attaching to these words. Anyway, blessed love. So I had not experienced many of them, and so let's just say they were more stagnant, pent up. So many questions that did get answered around that time. You know, however, I got into, released a lot of, let's just say, my trauma within that unknown trauma that I would never have revisited or reknown if I had not got into that, let's just say, kind of inner work. So I would have probably gone through my life with many different other addictions. So hence the other addictions. So people go through all their life basically without even knowing. So I was 16, 17, and let's just, well, I'm not going to keep saying let's just say, in a held space, this teacher was amazing. I did 2 groups, all 3 teachers were amazing, but I was more attracted to a certain group. So lifetimes, you see how people can be caught up in lifetimes of a certain trauma which depicts their life. And even in the groups, there was someone in the 60s, Parkinson's disease, and then all this stuff was coming out, really. So she didn't have to live that way. We don't have to live that way. What a contrast. 60, 40, 35-year-olds, and me, 17. So what a beautiful contrast I had with these 2 different groups. One, you could say, starting from the lower base up, the other group starting from the crown chakra down, which was, wow, could have picked a better choice. So my point of jumping in here is all this aspects imprinting on self isn't us. They're just entities that have been imprinted in us that we feed. So then we believe is us, and some of us, like I did mention in one of the podcasts, is, this word again, fortunate, unfortunate. Some of us never ever get a glimpse of a true essence of self. And then even if we do, we tend to run before we can even stand. We run with it, with the imprinted concept of what we should do, how we should react, or whatever, because we still haven't had a long-term grounding, like the roots, to be strong. And it's so, again, I'm going to use these words, it's a shame, but it is what it is, that let's just say at my age now, I would say just about standing, which is great, really, especially if Noah lived to 900. So on that level, I'm not even in kindergarten. I'm still in kindergarten. So there you go. And then I revisited it when I was 13. I remember in these groups, I had a visit to India, an ashram in India. I popped there for 10 days. And there was some workshops. And we had questions. And it's like, what do you fear the most? There was about 20 of us. And in this is my honest truth, I said I fear fear. Now I look back and I think how ridiculous, but that was my reality. Still, after a lot of work done already. So yeah, if you break it down, false evidence appearing real, so that opens up a whole many layers for me. So
the Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. When you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it. Were you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? I was. Look again. Freeze it. This isn't the Matrix. No. It's another training program designed to teach you one thing. If you are not one of us, you are one of them. What are they? Sentient programs. They can move in and out of any software still hardwired to their system. That means that anyone we haven't unplugged is potentially an agent. Inside the Matrix, they are everyone, and they are no one. We have survived by hiding from them, by running from them. But they are the gatekeepers. They are guarding all the doors, they are holding all the keys, which means that sooner or later, someone is going to have to fight them. Someone.
I use that term, false evidence appearing real, as opposed to fear. So if you keep throwing that in, keep throwing that in, I would throw it in as a mantra. Different sensations, different feelings, any feeling that associated with fear, a feeling, let's just say, to me is just a disconnect from our true trust, beautiful words, having faith, trust in who we ultimately are.
Got one that can see.
He's a tall, Caucasian male, doesn't appear armed, wearing sunglasses.
I don't like this one bit. Not one bit.
Tools to get back to that, or have glimpses of that, to work on that and sustain that. So fear, I could go on and on and on, and then we pass it down. You could spoon-fed, I would say, movies, through media, pop music, every day we can be subject to that program. However, it's being aware of many of them things, and then bringing in more positive programs that are kind of serving you, the more inner you, as opposed to the ego identity, you. Where to begin it? What Sabina mentioned is beautiful, because in terms of getting an equal balance of the duality, in terms of fear, it's the man-made concept. Contradiction of everything is perfect and everything is opportunities. So, and as Blythe was mentioning, what I find really amazing here, when I was 17 in these groups, similar here, but let's just say another 13 people, and then, wow, our different realities. At 17, I thought we all generally thought the same, all generally had the same experience. So when I hear you, Dorrit, and Blythe mention, had no problem in terms of expressing in public speaking, I was like, Grant, I was riddled with it, in terms of embarrassing myself, or wouldn't want to embarrass myself, So I was the youngest of 6. So in terms of the question, what was my most fear? And I have to say, riddled with a lot of stories, lots and lots of stories. So, where do I start?
I want to tell you a secret now. I see dead people.
So, but what I do remember is seeing in the bedroom all different rounds nearly every night. So my choice, this is me expressing a bit more. So what do I do? At the age of 4, mum had to work late, etc., etc. Between being in the bedroom, haunted to a big degree, or whatever I'm seeing this other realms, or go upstairs and with my bigger brothers and sisters watch Dracula or Frankenstein. Horrific at the age of 4. However, that was part of my, let's just say, the childhood. And there was abuse from a stepdad when around the age of 3, which I didn't really know until I got into these groups. So, okay, just to elaborate, I keep mentioning these groups, so elaborate on that. It was more self-inquiry, introspection work. You could say psychic work, but to be honest, it was clearing out the psyche, clearing out the bin, to even drop the psyche or get to the true essence of your psyche, clear out all the rubbish from your psyche. So, and there were many protocols at that time, which I did mention: rebirth, breath work, meditation on the elements, fire, earth, water, and air. Learn astrology, a bit of Kabbalah. So that's the point there, but more the point was, I would never have experienced that if there wasn't someone more connected in these 3, let's just say these 3 people, these teachers who are advocating, aspiring to help other people and set up these groups. So big blessed love to you guys. And so to help people get more connected so others may share authentically. So this was like, say 40 odd years ago. So much different to these days, where I do see they're very more tame, very more milked down, very more capitalized on. So, which is what it is. However, we just still have lots of young youth, and when I say young youth, can be in their 30s, 40s, running around like headless chickens, spouting out many different kind of spiritual beliefs, which is spoon-fed beliefs, and very false, as they say in the prophecies, many false prophets, false gurus, whatever, running on great wordsmiths. So I'm going on a little bit here. So we stay in these boxes really, and anything out of these boxes, we have interpretations. We've been spoon-fed to interpret anything out of these boxes a certain way. So anyone acts out of these certain boxes that I realized I had, I would interpret a different way, you know. So it's like it's good to go a bit deeper and go within the experience. You know, the more you work at it, you get closer to the seed. You know, all the blame, the guilt. He did that, she did that. You know, people talk about heartbroken. She broke my heart. He broke my heart. Opportunity. They showed your already broken heart. He, she showed you your already broken heart. So stop getting stuck. Just sharing my experience. So, you know, these people held a beautiful safe space. You know, there's always levels of safe, what we can define as safe, and we can have excuses that it wasn't safe. We can stop let's just say, a food program that is assisting us, that is helping us, and it didn't work for me, generally because something's come up maybe too big that you don't want to venture into, so you keep creating a scenario. So once again, we are let's just say, projector, literally the movie maker, and our movie's already been made until we break that spoon-fed movie of ours. But if we're going to just keep reeling that same movie, then we can stay in a certain horror movie, whatever we want to call it. Yeah, but we're magical beings. Yeah, well, we are, but we're also very messed up beings. Let's clear the mess to get to that magical being and aspire to sustain that magical being. We're magical that we create all different forms of ourselves. So massively large, so massively thin, so diverse in color, diverse in the ways we are. Wow, what magic. We can take it to another level. We can take it to another level. We can keep taking it to many levels. I'm going to stop there. That kind of covers a lot, but then we do externalize our fears into spiders, moths, ridiculous things that can't really harm you. And if we was able to go to the core issue of that, as many things, blame, guilt, anger, we could, and had the tools and the patience, we could unravel the seed of them. This is what my experience in working with other people I have experienced. And Dory, you mentioned, yes, most people are in fear of life. On another level, oxymoron there, fear of death is we are personally already in death. Our spirit isn't, our child is being traumatized, majority of us, that we are not connected. So we are in a kind of physical spirit death. So I personally believe on a level that we have all the fear, false evidence appearing real, all these programs that are made so massive. So yeah, I say programs made so massive. Basically, in this reality, they're just everywhere. The 9 to 5 work, all this kind of stuff, different things we can attach to, money, movies, whatever, relationships, in, let's just say, shown or projected to us in an unauthentic way. So we can obviously raise above that. So they're all the programs, and to me, why we need shadow work is because all that I just said is the shadow. We live in the shadow, so the more we come out of that shadow of ourselves, a mere lower level of ourselves, we come out of the shadow. We wouldn't need all the shadow work. We wouldn't need soul retrieval, because we would just be more complete. But every day we do that, every day, all our time. It's a ritual. So we're fragmenting ourselves. That the word trauma and the stuff that has affected us, we've got a whole package with that, where it can be so easy. And as Sabina said, we can dance with it, learn to dance with it, and just support each other. I personally believe it would have been with family and friends. We would have all been a bit more functional, all a bit more together. So just in our mutual conversation, great-grandparents wouldn't be so medicated and taken out. Our children wouldn't be so medicated and taken out. So the spirit would be strong in both of them generations. So that would be it, just in our everyday awareness. So wouldn't have to go to therapists, etc., because we would just be balanced there in our conversation, positive conversations, positive communication, love, faith, trust, and not getting caught up in the lower level negativity of many things.
Yes, absolutely. So a
few stories. I suppose I got to sort of define between fear, intuition. Intuition to me nowadays is, connected, unconnected. That would be more my interpretation. So in terms of fear, so let's just say intuition. I remember 4 years on my journey, so this was 13 years ago, I had certain abscess. I used to have so many teeth stories, so I'd get abscesses. And so I was on the raw food journey thinking, I shouldn't be getting these. But anyway, in retrospect, I can see why. And then after 2 days, one of my side of the glands swelled right up. So I listen for these alarm bells. Yeah, I try to be a bit more clearer. Listen to these alarm bells. So connection on disconnection. So if we do more, let's just say, work supporting the true eye, you're more connected. So in terms of listening to these alarm bells, I'm going to talk, Sabina talks about trust and faith. It's having that connection to trust that. So I trusted that. However, people around me were freaking out in fear 3-4 days into this. So I realized in retrospect that was my first actual dry fast without knowing nothing about dry fast. I probably went 6 days with no liquids, no nothing. So I could have succumbed to the fear around me, but I wasn't feeling it in my body, and Dorit mentioned, how fear can serve you and how it can not serve us. So this could be an example of that. Let's just say getting impressed upon me a panic kind of situation that actually you need to do something about this. So I can see how that can work like that. I think as we go on through, excuse my little baba, through the levels of connection, rather than, let's just say, having to be heavily shown or imprinted or impressed in a very more heavy way, my experience is it just becomes a bit more lighter and softer and gentler. The more we listen, the more we stay connected. So I suppose that's what I'm alluring to express about the axis, really. It was just like, wow, everyone was freaking out around me, and I could have succumbed to that, but I chose to follow an intuition connection of not just blindly faith or blindly trust, a connection that we all have within. And then at the end of the whole journey of that 6 days in, I didn't really get to express on that inner level. There was a party going on, a bit like the New Orleans when I shared. So I was impressed that upon me, and was getting thanks and all sorts of kind of gifts, gratitude for following that through. And then if I look back in retrospect and forward, that has happened many times in my life. So that gives me reassurance of a connection. So that's a connection that I would be talking about, really. It's like to that point I would get shown and just shown. It's like, right, I'm not getting any alarm bells. The voice is not telling me anything. Okay. And I'm thinking, right, if the other side swells up, that means I can't even swallow. So I would definitely go to the hospital, let's just say something like that. This is only my experience. So so the other side did swell up. I realized that was my first ever dry fast. So I went on for 6 days, I think, going through that potentially detox healing process. I would say that's what it turned out. So I had no alarm bells. So I followed my intuition. And let's just say after about the 6th day, I remember just with a friend, we went just like an old man going down to the sea, wet in the sea, come back out the sea, because the theory cold, hot. At that time, didn't know too much about it. I thought it might shock the system. I came back late, sat in the sun, and then all of a sudden this mass of the most gross stuff come out of my mouth. So that was obviously the abscess. I didn't know it was an abscess at the time. People. So yeah, quickly saying that the abscess was a build-up of me in my ignorance of raw, and even though I had done a few fasts, but still in my ignorance of raw, really, or raw vegan, should I say, in terms of neglecting, let's just say, my mouth, my teeth, hygiene in my mouth, and more heavily in the bananas and dates, still cashews. So to me, that's not really a very high end of the raw vegan. So it's just to throw in quickly, even though I'm raw vegan, whatever that may mean, it was just looking for a more optimal way of consumption, really. what I found. Of course, some people will advocate this, and there's so much misinformation going on at the moment. Oh my gosh, I would be confused if my roots weren't strong. So, you know, I could say I feel sorry for the younger generation, whatever, etc. And of course, yeah, do what works for you. Yeah, of course, we may, some of the food choices may kind of make us feel better for a small while. How about long term? And there's so many things to take into consideration: where you live, what's the environment like, how active you are, you know, what's your consistency, what you do. There's the EMFs we've talked about. You know, yeah, plane journeys, how much you're subjecting yourself to, whether toxic relationships, toxic people, toxic environment. You know, I've had, I remember me and my partner was not waiting with someone else was in the cafe, and we just let them get on with it. They was making, the food actually looked amazing, colourful, the way they did it. But there was two new, they were just chatting. We couldn't wait to have this food. When we sat down, we could only eat quarter of the plate. So we can kill the food. So what I'm going to say here is, it is about the food. Ultimately, if you can get the cleanest, most vibrant, nutritional, dense, enzyme-rich food, but don't kill it on the way. So let's just say we cook it. It's not alkaline. We cook alkaline food, then it's not alkaline. Yes, it was alkaline, so there's a truth, a half-truth, but we cook it. It's not alkaline. So another level, yeah, we blend. So smoothies, yeah, technically not as healthy as certain other foods, or literally from the tree. So let's go back to in the CAF. So this is what I've become aware of at festivals when I take the CAF and have volunteers try and drop them into this space. And then when some acclaimed spiritual or whatever, you know, years and years of different work, hit that space, I said, right, just stay there. Now, what, where, what? So it's amazing. And it's not to put anyone down. We do our best, but because we have these boxes and there's so much misinformation in terms of spirituality and how to be, and we align to certain ways. So it's no one's fault. However, people like me outside the box can take the brunt, but that's fine. Don't take it personally. So so that gives me an opportunity to share, if it isn't a presence, a connection in making the food. You know, if someone said, Pete, what would you rather have, a kind of toxic made raw plant-based food or a cooked food made with love? I'm like, well, there wouldn't be no point, no need to think about it. I would have the cooked food, you know. But for me, you know, the highest is, let's just say, non-contaminated, close to God created foods, God-given foods, you know. And that doesn't, please don't go to the flesh story. Other animals, you know, that's just another real dark shadow kind of ritual. Leave it there. Blessed love. Oh, you could have died of that, and poison could have got in your body, etc., etc. So I didn't, let's just say, maybe that's not a good interpretation, but I have many like that. That was me listening to a certain connectedness, certain voice that I've rekindled, that I realize everyone, I believe, has got. Some more than others, some maybe have to do more work than others, some, you know, let's just say push it down more than others. And so the more we integrate and be that, that's an experience of some of my fear. In the groups, I was jumping hurdle after hurdle. A woman took me under her wing, the teacher tutor. So that was a great experience to jump over a hurdle. And like Sabina mentioned, that was the first imprinting of, oh my gosh, every time you jump that hurdle, jump into that fear, it only gets better. It only gets better. I look back in retrospect, all of my life, all the experiences, whatever you want to call them, positive, negative, they're all I can see. I'm not just rationalizing to make them up to make myself feel better, but the outcome has just been amazing. So then I start realizing the word perfection in terms of how everything is perfection. I had a real hard time getting my head around that. So that's my experience of fear. Every time go through the unreal, false evidence appearing real, reaction, anger, blame, guilt, whatever it may be, terrified, intuitions to me slightly different. Fight or flight. Anyway, there's quite a bag to interpret there. That's my experience on that one anyway.
Thank you, Pete.
When my youngest children, my oldest children, apologies, we went to see Jurassic Park way back, and they were about maybe 6 or 7, and apparently it was a PG, and I asked people, "You sure it's okay?" It was horrific. 6 and 7. So how they make movies PGs, I just cannot believe it. Yeah, I also forgot. So bearing that in mind, it's just like, how do they ever allow that? Of course, we know why. Desensitize our younger generation. And then, so obviously I forgot to say, over the days, especially within the first few hours, I'm just kind of counseling my children, through that, making light of it, clearing the shock that they had, really. Once again, they had really on another level, let's just, I would say, unresolved shock that, in retrospect, still I was aware to the best I could be at that time, but some of their shock, whether they're birth shock, in the womb birth shock, hospital shock, shock and imprinting from me and their mum, environment, schools. So us as guardian parents really need to be more aware, so we can just guide them along, so things in life are kind of easier to kind of, let's just say, decipher and witness and let go. So so over the days, had to keep throwing in little pointers about that to lighten it. It's just a movie, and however I expressed it to them at that time, uniquely individual to either one of them, to how they could interpret that, or I believe how they could hear me. Harry Potter, string the kids along so they all want to watch it, and then it goes like, oh my gosh.
Severus, I was beginning to worry you had lost your way.
Like a horror movie. I'm going to say I've been blessed that I watched all that kind of nonsense, and if it wasn't for our newborn now, I would be watching a little bit of it with in different eyes. Blessed that I've ate lots of nonsense. Blessed that I've had many, many traumas. So, and come out the other end and a big smile on my face. So the meter is so, as someone's mentioned, it's your reality. That's all you know. Fortunately, some of us here are more blessed, and another blessed type of blessing, that they are aware to choose their own reality. They're not so caught up in the addiction, caught up in that false identity of self, and have no sense of self, which I can look back many times of myself, look at many people I've shared with. So some of us are fortunate to even have an sense of self to discriminate between. So some of us are just in that, let's just say, rat race, or running the gauntlet. You know, and there's so many beliefs, you know, samsara, they call it, karma. You know, okay, I understand now, understand, overstand. Do we know? Who knows? Who really knows? You know, that was my karma. Is that their karma? Who really knows? Who really knows? However, standing for something is very advisable. But don't maybe get too stuck in that stance. You know, religions, dogma, whatever we call it. So I could sort of say, oh, I realize now in terms of karma, then people are meant to go through that. I'm meant to go through that. Yeah, there's some truth in that, but let's just break the karma word down. Cause and effect. So I'm going to say obviously, you see a cause, you see an effect, a ripple effect. So on that level of karma, like breaking down fear, false evidence appearing real, yeah, I will agree with karma there. Whether past lives, whatever we want to call it, whether they're all happening all at once, I like that for the moment. You know, but energy's energy. If we get free flowing energy, it's just all is, and we're a supercomputer. So there's no problem, because we got back to the super computer capacity of let's just say processing type of, say, use that term. So media, you know, there's a lot of money to be made. Yes, the critical thinking can't come in, you know, keep us as just certain sort of kind of workers for a certain reality, feed off us in many different ways. However, things are changing, and it's so beautiful seeing different, even in some of the movies. You know, I see some amazing positive things in some of the movies. I haven't watched one for a few years, watched documentaries. I did watch Noah the other night, 2014. I have watched it again. My partner and the mother-in-law wanted to watch it, so I watched 3/4 of it, and that was amazing. You know, when he's on the ship, you know, on the ark, and then it's all flooding, and the family are just there eating dinner, and everyone's drowning in the sea, the waters. And if you notice, the waters come from up through the earth and from down below. Mental, eh? Quite an interesting perception. But no, they were all primitive back there, so they didn't really know, eh? But anyway, that's another story. So they're sitting there, screams, and it's just like, you know, the family around them just can't bear the screams. Noah's having to sit strong. So, you know, an analogy of that, I would say, we're in that. We come into that realm. My experience of what I've seen in the realms, what I see, what I witness, I don't have to pay too much attention to that realm. It's just what it is. So there's all these people. We're already in that time, you know. So we come into that time where there isn't many in the ark floating on top. So are we going to allow, which we have allowed, or the system has allowed, wherever we are, the reality that whoever's holding the reality has kind of had in place, so we all are sinking. So anyone, are we going to get into that ark? Are we going to get into that ark and sit like Noah, having to sit through it, trust in the Creator? You know, the Creator gave him so many, let's just say, examples. It's like, what, you're going to lose your trust, lose your faith. So this is where I see that movie as a real good, parts of that as a really good analogy, and don't get caught up in all the, let's say, blind subliminal nonsense. So I saw that as we are in them times, we are in them realms. You know, I'm 62 now, so I came into that realm. So let's get on the ark, guys. However, so things are changing if you look globally now. However, you know, once again, the media is controlled. If you just look on certain mainstream, which so many people do, so we are blessed. Some of us are blessed in a different way to know to look elsewhere. Otherwise, no wonder 90% or whatever percentage of the population are just believe one reality. You know, it's great, certain things coming out of Africa, certain leaders, you know, let's just say, you know, people claiming back their, let's just say, authenticity, equal rights. So it feels like a global shift. We can talk about the planets as well, prophecies and things like that.
Thank you. So that brings us.
I forgot to mention, following my dreams, which I was very well rehearsed in over the 17 years, I realized consuming fear-based foods, because my journey was raw vegan, animals, obviously the adrenaline from the death consuming its energy, we're energy beings. So my whole dream state changed. So my whole reality changed. So it's a symbiotic, holistic approach.